The conference room smelled like lemon cleaner and burned coffee. My boss, Mr. Caldwell, grinned like he owned the whole building and slid a termination packet across the table. "We're restructuring. Your role is redundant," he said. Redundant. The word hit like a punch. My hands, still warm from my morning coffee, shook when I signed the paper out of habit, out of shock. He handed me the folder with a smile that pretended to be gentle. "We'll give you a reference." His son, Blake, sat behind him, arms folded, looking pleased as if he'd arranged the whole thing as a party trick. I stared at the folder, the letterhead, the HR bullet points that made human costs sound like an accounting entry. Everyone at the table avoided my eyes. Jordan, my manager, kept his face blank, as if loyalty had an off switch. I remembered the code I'd stayed late to finish, the spreadsheet formulas I'd rewritten, the nights I'd fixed the server alone. All gone. My throat burned. I wanted to scream the truth. "You're using my name in memos you never printed. You're spending my ideas like they're free coffee." Instead, I closed my mouth and left the room with a polite nod, the Terminator packet heavy in my hands and a small, sharp stone of rage growing inside me. I walked out into the hallway like a ghost. The fluorescent lights hummed, and my badge beeped once when I tapped it to leave. In the elevator, a woman I trained smiled at me the way people smile at strangers in airports. The elevator doors opened, and I let the cool night air hit my face. My phone buzzed with a Slack thread I wasn't supposed to see. A late-night message from Brett's account. My boss's son, mocking my old-school methods. I'd seen enough to know they'd planned this. 2 weeks earlier, I'd found a private repo with comments about modernizing and replacing legacy. They'd labeled my work as legacy, and then bragged about hiring someone younger. My hands trembled as I dialed Sasha, who still worked on my old team. "They replaced you," she whispered, as if she feared the answer. "Yes," I said. I thought of the algorithm I'd finished at midnight, the one with the watermark I placed in the comments, just in case. I told Sasha, "Don't panic. Get me everything you can about the rollout." She agreed. My blood thrummed. I had no plan, only the raw need to protect what was mine. I opened my laptop at a ramen place, noodles steaming beside me, and checked the timestamped logs I kept. The code I'd built had pushes at 10:14 p.m., 11:02 p.m., 1:13 a.m., all from my home IP. I had saved every version, every comment, every debug note. The company's IP clause was nasty in its phrasing. Work produced during employment belongs to the company. I'd always assumed that meant work done on their systems. My name floated across the legal page like a trap, but my push logs showed commits from my laptop, not the office. I compiled screenshots, downloaded archives, bookmarked emails where my manager praised my work. I could feel a plan forming like a skeleton under my skin. I sent a quiet message to a recruiter I trusted. "Do you know Allure X Systems?" Their reply came fast. "They've been looking for someone like you." I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to leave, but I knew I couldn't let them pretend they owned my mind. While the ramen cooled, I reached for the files on a flash drive, then stopped. I'd watermarked my code, hidden signatures that proved authorship. If this escalated, I'd need proof. At home, I set an old notebook on the table, the one where I wrote feature ideas and scribbled architecture diagrams. The entries were dated and messy with late-night caffeine stains. I added printed logs to an envelope and slid it into the safe in my closet. That night I imagined scenarios, suing the company, going public, or quietly taking my code elsewhere. Sleep eluded me. Anger and calculation wrestled under my ribs. In the morning, I walked past the office building in the rain, not to go in but to watch. A security guard recognized me and nodded. He didn't know I once had an office 2 floors up. Inside, Mason, the new hire, strutted in with a skateboard under his arm, shirt sleeves flapping. He looked the part of young energy, not the part of someone who understood failure rates or exception handling. Rumors buzzed that he deleted directories, thinking they were redundant. My heart stuttered. Deleting core modules is catastrophic. If he truly wiped essential files, the system would fail. But I had no wish to see my team suffer. Still, a small, unwanted spark of vindication glowed. They'd thrown out the person who carefully built the machine. Now the machine might fail without her. The text started that morning. Dashboard down. Client presentation crashed. We can't pull reports. Sasha sent a video of Mason standing before a bank of monitors, panic turning sweat on his brow. Brett shouted orders like he'd read them in a leadership manual. I sat on my couch watching the video on my phone, feeling both dread and a chill of grim satisfaction. The system they'd used, my system, kept failing because backups I'd set up remained untouched or were misconfigured by a team that didn't know the architecture. One client had live shipments stalled in terminals because the routing engine crashed. I paged through client emails. One asked for details about delays. Another threatened to pull business. I closed my eyes and breathed. Then, a call from an unknown number shifted everything. Devin Lin, CTO of Alurex Systems. He'd heard murmurs of my algorithm and wanted to meet. I swallowed. Alurex had resources and respect I'd never been offered. This might be the way forward. But first, I had to decide. Move quietly and reclaim my life, or strike back at a company that had crossed a line. I met Devin at a lantern-lit ramen bar downtown, where the steam fogged the windows. He was direct and unhurried, the kind of person who listened like he wanted to understand how things fit. "We've seen a leak," he said. "Someone built something that should not exist in their market yet. Who are you?" I didn't want to boast, but I also didn't want to hide. I slid a sample file across the table. He opened it and smiled, nodding. This architecture could change routing by integrating real-time exceptions. You built resilience into the model. He asked about ownership. I explained the gravity, company IP clauses, my late-night commits, the watermark. Devin leaned back. "If you're free, we can build a product around this. We'll protect your IP." My head swam with possibility. Trust is a fragile thing, and I'd been betrayed. Yet here was someone offering not just a job, but respect and equity. I said I needed time. He replied, "We'll move fast." On my way out, I realized my old company might be collapsing. The idea of selling them my work for pennies felt wrong. I wanted agency, and Devin's calm promise offered it. Back at the coffee table, I opened the file drawer with my legal folder. My attorney replied within an hour after I emailed the logs and the screenshots. "You have a strong claim if your work was done off hours on your equipment," she typed. "But corporations fight dirty, prepare." The word prepare made my stomach flip like a trapdoor. I called Sasha. She told me things were worse. Vendor contracts were now at risk, and an East Coast client had threatened litigation. M&M's founder, Carla, was furious and convened a board meeting. I felt relief that someone above Brett saw the horror, but relief twisted into guilt. My old teammates were burning out fixing crashing services. Yet I'd been dismissed in a boardroom as if my years didn't matter. That evening I drafted a calm public post. Documentation is power. I published it like a seed, and watched as former colleagues liked and shared. A logistics VP reshared with a comment wondering who the original author was. Small ripples began. The post went further than I expected. Someone dug up an old blog post I'd written about workplace fairness and innovation. It re-emerged and people connected dots I'd long left anonymous. Comments flowed with praise, stories of similar treatment, and questions. I kept my name out of the spotlight for a few days, letting whispers do their work. But the industry has ears, and Alurex's PR team reached out to confirm my identity. Devin suggested a cautious intro, a private meeting with potential clients, not yet public. Meanwhile, chaos at M&M ballooned. Mason's edits had caused a security hole, vendor data had been exposed. TechCrunch posted a short piece about it, and I felt a cold knot tighten. This wasn't only about pride anymore. People's sensitive info had been endangered. I felt responsible for my colleagues in an odd way. I also knew that if M&M collapsed in scandal, recovery would be slow and painful for many. Alurex offered me a role, Director of Intelligence Systems, with equity and a team of engineers. The offer felt like vindication. But I hesitated. Joining a rival could be messy. Devin promised legal backing if needed and respect for my authorship. I signed after meetings with their legal counsel. They'd audit my logs, secure patents, and back me if M&M contested ownership. That night I deleted my old bookmarks and packed a small bag of office keepsakes, photos of team hackathons, a mug with dried coffee rings, a sticky note with a joke from Sasha. Leaving is never neat. The next morning, I informed HR and filed my resignation at M&M, careful to keep everything civil. My phone buzzed with messages. Some teammates wanted to follow. 3 of my engineers said they'd come with me. I felt the joy of being wanted for what I created, not just tolerated for what I did. The day I left, the office felt hollow. Brett called me a traitor in a terse text. Jordan pretended to be supportive but avoided eye contact. At Alurex, Devin greeted me with a handshake that felt like a contract and a hug that felt like a promise. We set up a small lab, pulled in the engineers who trusted me, and began building PulseFlow, the product that would package my routing system. We upgraded visuals, added compliance layers, and protected client data. The team worked late nights in a healthy rhythm. There was respect in the air. Word of our stealth demos reached M and M's clients. Some asked for demonstrations. Others expressed frustration with their current provider. When we demoed to a disgruntled East Coast vendor, their faces lit up. "This is what we wanted months ago," one exec said, eyes bright. The contrast between our carefully designed platform and M's chaotic system was stark. Then M hit back. They issued a vague press release claiming their platform was undergoing upgrades and dismissing migration rumors. Brett fired off an internal email calling us copycats. I stayed quiet publicly. Alurex's lawyers prepared counterarguments. We'd secured proofs, timestamps, IP logs, and third-party audits. Still, the company's initial move was to send a cease and desist, alleging we had stolen proprietary code. Devin smiled wryly as our legal team read it, then leaned in. "They'll lose if they challenge the logs." The threat of litigation hovered in the air as a weapon both sides could use. Meanwhile, vendors lined up for demos. Our demo bookings doubled in a week. We moved carefully, signing non-disclosure agreements and vetting access. The industry's chatter turned into a wave. PulseFlow began to trend in internal message boards and small industry forums. I still worried about my old colleagues trapped in the mess. Sasha was exhausted but determined. She sent me snippets of her week, late deployments, calls at odd hours, management pressure. I felt guilty for my relief. One night I drove to the old office building and sat in my car outside, watching windows glow with office light. Employees streamed out, heads bowed from another long shift. I thought of lunchroom jokes and holiday potlucks, small human things that don't survive corporate storms. The next morning, Alurex offered an emergency weekend workshop for engineers in the industry, open invitations to those affected by M's failures. I wanted to help without flaunting my charm. The workshop filled fast. We shared best practices, documentation templates, and offered pro bono consulting to smaller vendors hit by outages. Giving back felt right. It also sealed my public image as someone building, not destroying. Public opinion shifted faster than I expected. Articles praising my leadership popped up with headlines about mid-career talent being undervalued. Social feeds filled with anecdotes from people who'd been sidelined. Brett tried damage control, but the board's patience was thin. Internal leaks suggested Carla, and some board members were furious at how nepotism had wrecked client trust. Tension in M's hallways increased. Senior staff whispered about performance reviews and audits. Then a leaked internal email from Jordan landed in my inbox via an ex-colleague. In it, Jordan recommended keeping me on consulting to avoid exposing their negligence. The email proved management knew the risks. I forwarded it to our lawyers. Evidence stacked up like building blocks. I felt both triumphant and uneasy. Winning would confirm my worth, but the collateral damage to people I'd once sat with felt heavy. M escalated with a public legal claim, demanding we stop marketing PulseFlow and accusing Alurex of intellectual theft. The complaint appeared on legal news feeds. My chest tightened, but Alurex's team was unshaken. Our attorneys released a statement citing clear commit histories and external audits confirming my authorship. Industry opinions polarized for a day, then shifted as our proofs gained traction. The board at M convened emergency meetings and decided to remove Brett from day-to-day strategy, at least temporarily. Rumors flew: resignation, demotion, and internal shakeups. The company's reputation took hits worth millions in client confidence. Amid this, I kept focused on the product. We refined PulseFlow 1.1, adding a dashboard that clients loved, intuitive, transparent, and built for resilience. Each new demo sealed trust. One afternoon, an email from a major industry magazine requested an interview. They wanted to know how I'd handle betrayal and built something new. I agreed, careful with my wording. On camera, I spoke about documentation, integrity, and mentoring, no gloating. The piece went live with a title that made my stomach flutter, from redundant to revolutionary. The industry clapped, and message boards filled with praise. Inside M&M, pressure mounted. The founder, Carla, faced grilling from the board about oversight and hires. She started public health leave rumors. Stress, the PR said. Brett's public image crumbled under scrutiny, privilege and inexperience on display. The sting of seeing someone you trained mocked by the very people who benefited from your labor was cathartic to witness. Still, I tempered my satisfaction with responsibility. Winning felt hollow if people were punished unfairly. The legal battle moved toward a settlement discussion. M&M reached out through counsel with a buyout offer. Pay us a licensing fee and avoid a public courtroom showdown. They wanted to keep their dignity. Our legal team countered with a figure that made their lawyers wince. The public apology was a non-negotiable term for me. It had to include explicit acknowledgement that I developed the original routing architecture. After long negotiations, both sides found terms. M&M agreed to license certain legacy modules, while Allurex retained ownership of PulseFlow and my IP. The settlement included a payment and the public apology. It felt like both retribution and repair. I thought of the slow justice of evidence and the fast cruelty of power. Standing in the negotiation room, I felt worn but vindicated. The apology ran across industry channels the next week. M&M's statement named me as the originator and acknowledged failures in governance. Brett issued a short, stiff public statement apologizing for his role in decisions that led to client disruption. Some online commentators praised the outcome as justice. Others criticized the spectacle. Internally, I felt a sweep of closure. Jordan retired quietly, his LinkedIn scrubbed clean. Carla announced she'd stepped down from her executive role. But the human cost remained. Many employees had lost faith in their leaders. I held meetings with my new team to ensure we absorbed lessons, how to document, how to support mid-career professionals, and how to protect intellectual property. We launched the Phoenix program, a mentorship and placement fund to help displaced professionals rebuild. Giving others a ladder felt like the kind of victory I wanted. News outlets picked up the Phoenix program story. The fund helped mid-career tech workers find roles and offered microgrants to freelancers. Marisol, a brilliant analyst I'd mentored, launched a container analytics feature that cut clients overhead. Her success made me proud. My role wasn't only building software but building people. The program became a small industry movement. At conferences, people approached me to thank me for speaking up and for the action that followed. Occasionally, a former colleague from M&M would send a quiet message asking for help. I replied when I could. That winter, I returned to the old building for a small meetup we hosted for folks displaced by the scandal. Watching people network and land roles felt better than any headline. I realized revenge without repair leaves emptiness. Adding repair filled the space with purpose. As PulseFlow grew, so did the team. Emma, an old friend who had once worked under Jordan, joined after watching my TEDx talk. She brought pragmatic ideas and a knack for stakeholder management. We refined product strategy and launched PulseFlow 2.0, a predictive layer that anticipated weather delays and port congestion. Clients reported immediate savings. I found myself in meetings framed by city skylines, taking moments to breathe in a life that had once felt boxed. Yet, echoes lingered. My inbox still contained angry letters from strangers who loved Brett, or those who thought I'd been vengeful. I learned to let such commentary pass. The important thing was the small daily work, code reviews, mentoring calls, strategy sessions. Success felt less like vindication and more like responsibility. One afternoon, a surprise call came from Sasha. She was back at M&M on a new team after the shakeup. Her voice trembled with cautious optimism. "You won't believe it," she said. "They promoted someone who actually knows systems, and they asked me to lead a rebuild." I accepted. I felt a rush of relief. She'd found a role where her voice mattered. We talked about maintaining professional boundaries and ethical responsibility. I realized we'd both moved forward but kept ties that mattered. That night, at Allurex, we toasted the small wins. Sasha's promotion, Marisol's analytics success, Emma's new features. We toasted a team that honored work over titles. Building something better felt less like revenge and more like correcting a wrong. Months passed. The industry normalized. Pulse Flow's name became shorthand for robust routing. Investors asked about expansion, and we mapped out new verticals: healthcare logistics and disaster relief routing. We tested models that could optimize vaccine shipments during crises. The work felt urgent and meaningful. One morning, I received a message from an old HR rep who'd once handed me the termination packet. She apologized. She'd left M&M and now worked in nonprofit staffing. Her message was short. "I'm sorry for how things went. You deserve better." I replied, "Thank you. Apologies are small gestures, sometimes late, but they matter." The rhythm of life, code, calls, mentorship continued. I learned to savor quiet moments, a successful demo, a mentee's voicemail of gratitude, a clean run of tests after a long day, the warmth of a small dinner with friends. The legal settlement fund included provisions for client remediation at M&M. Some clients received payments or discounts, others switched providers. The industry enforced better governance standards. Boards started asking new questions about nepotism and technical oversight. I testified at a governance roundtable about documentation and career pathways. My voice carried because it came from experience, not theory. At the roundtable, board members scribbled notes and asked practical questions. How do you preserve IP? How do you measure mid-career value? My answers were blunt and practical. Afterward, attendees thanked me for my candidness. That felt good. The layers of industry change were slow but real. Watching policies, it just felt like seeing seeds sprout in soil I'd once tended alone. Allurex grew, but I insisted on keeping teams small enough to care. We opened an office that prioritized shared resources and quiet rooms for focus. We expanded the Phoenix program into a fellowship with stipends for those retraining. Marisol's container method became an industry standard. Emma's stakeholder model became a training module. At a company retreat, Devon surprised me with a small plaque acknowledging my leadership and the team's resilience. I kept it on my shelf, a quiet reminder of what had been gained. Yet the drive never dulled. There were always bugs to fix and clients to win. Success asked for constant attention. I welcomed it. One spring evening, I walked into a small cafe and saw Tamara, my sister from years ago, sitting at a corner table. Her expression was tentative. She waved me over. We talked not about headlines, but about the small things. Family dinners, our parents' latest garden project. She admitted she'd read about my work and felt embarrassed for underestimating me years ago. I accepted her apology without fanfare. We shared stories over tea and laughed at the old, silly things that made us sisters. The reconciliation felt real but quiet. No grand gestures, just two people who'd learned to listen. It reminded me of how I'd handled my own workplace betrayal, measured, firm, and aimed at repair rather than ruin. Standing on the rooftop at Allurex's 10th anniversary, I looked at the city lights and felt an odd calm. We celebrated not just product success, but the people who had been lifted along the way. The Phoenix program had placed dozens in dignified roles. Pulse Flow had helped ports and hospitals move crucial supplies. I remember the conference room where they'd handed me a packet with that smile that tried to erase me. Everything had changed. I thought about revenge, not the petty kind, but the firm, ethical reclaiming of one's labor and dignity. I thought about repair, mentorship, and the quiet work of documenting truths. As fireworks dotted the sky, I raised a glass with my team. We'd won in ways measured by code, by people, and by the culture we'd built. The story wasn't about punishing a boss. It was about building a future where talent mattered, and that felt like the real victory. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story, and don't forget to like the video to help others find it.